So, Mr. Gates, thanks so much for joining us. How are you?
Very good. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. How are you both doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm really good. We're doing really well. Mark?
Same, yeah, all powering through. It's an interesting market, so we might get into that maybe at some stage within this chat, maybe. But yeah, there are some challenges out there. But all good, all good.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, look, let's jump straight in. So, you said something to me just off before we hit record, which was really interesting when you said you grew up always wanting to be an estate agent. Are you sure?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's only me and Perry Power who are the only two people I've ever heard say that. And yeah, no, I think so. I was a newspaper boy. I was a village newspaper boy, and it was a daily newspaper. So you're thinking, where the hell is he going with this? But I delivered that 364 days a year. Your only day off was Christmas Day.
Wow.
And that was probably in my adolescent years before you could be old enough to legally go like pot wash in a pub or something. And I used to love kind of flicking through, for example, like on the Sunday, and it would be in the Sunday Times, lovely big properties, and like trying to guess the property prices and stuff like that. So I always enjoyed that. And then I think also doing my newspaper round in the village, you're walking past loads of different houses. They're all
Yeah.
different shapes and sizes. It's a nice village. There's some nice big houses as well. So that always interested me. And then, yeah, I did work experience in the summer of 2007. And my parents did not want me to be an estate agent, like, absolutely not. And I did work experience at an estate agent in the summer of '07 when I finished my GCSEs. I did work experience at the Houses of Parliament,
Oh, wow.
and I did work experience for Farrers. And for anyone who doesn't know who Farrers are, they might not be now, but at the time they were the royal family's law firm.
Okay.
So my parents were like, okay, so you've gone and lived in London for like a month, you've been to Parliament, you've done the whole law firm thing. Which one are you going to choose? I went, oh, I want to be an estate agent in Buckinghamshire. And they're like, what are you doing? But I was hooked from the first minute, because I think in that summer of '07 the market was absolutely bonkers.
Yep.
Yeah, it
It
was
was, yeah.
absolutely crazy. And I saw agents driving nice cars, going to wine bars. There was a phone here, like deals left, right, and centre. I was like, this is awesome. So I decided there I wanted to be an agent. I was 16, coming up to 17. My parents like, can you please just go do your A levels? Because if that doesn't work out, because you're only 16, you're a kid really. At
Mm.
least you got your A levels behind you and potentially go to university. University was not of interest to me. I knew I could go be an estate agent and learn
Yep.
as I went along. So after that, doing that work experience, I spent my evenings and weekends working in that estate agency on absolute bugger all minimum wage money as a 16-year-old, but just learning the craft, going out on viewings, going out on valuations. And then obviously the market changed. We obviously had the boom and bust. And
Yep.
one of my roles as a working a Saturday was open up the office at 9 o'clock, print off the diary for the negotiator. They then give them all their brochures for all their appointments. Now I'm manning the phone, taking messages, passing on booking views, etc. But one of the things was updating the negotiators' folders on their desk, and then also the window cards. And every week, because we were in such a bad market, each week it was like 5 grand off, 5 grand off, 5 grand off. So I'd
Right.
kind of, before I even finished my A levels between '07 and '09, I'd experienced an unbelievable market and then the worst market. So when I started full time in the summer of '09, I think the day after my last A level, so I just was obsessed with wanting to do it. I kind of got so much experience within 2 years of seeing both sides of the market. So yeah, so went into it full time there. And it's funny because when I did my A levels, my teacher said to me, "You need to get your mission statement done or whatever it was to go off to uni and stuff." I was like, "I'm not interested. I'm going to be an estate agent." And they'd laugh at me. My classmates would laugh at me, going, "What are you on about going to be an estate agent?" They used to jokingly call me Gates Estates, which is actually an estate agency business. So can't take that name if I ever want to be an agent. But I'm rambling on, but really funny story quickly. I knocked on someone's door. This is probably 10 years into my estate agency career, and person opens the door, and it was my German history teacher, Mr. Whiting. I'll never forget it. And he was like, "Oh my God, you did become an estate agent." I said, "I told you I would." And he literally said there and then, "I mean, I don't know how this conversation can go, Simon, but you're going to be selling my house." That literally on his doorstep. 'Cause he's like, "You said 10 years ago you're going to go be an estate agent. Here you are knocking at my door." And I went on to sell that house. So yeah, that's kind of a bit about like always wanting to do it, and then where I kind of got to in it.
There must be a deep rooted passion in there, Simon, because you just said there that you had in you can see why you was maybe consumed by it in that period, because I remember it very, very well back in 2007. 2006, 2007 was just absolutely incredible. But then you saw the flip side. So that want and that desire to be an estate agent didn't go down by you seeing the worst market of all time. Why do you think that was? Was it just the whole, because it now isn't just about financial and the benefits, because you're seeing the opposite, aren't you? So what was it about the industry you think that really captivated you like that?
I think I loved that no day was the same, because I didn't want to be I didn't want to, let's say, get a corporate job, go work in, this is what I thought as a kid anyway, or a teenager, go work in London and be on a train back and forth, sit at the same cubicle Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Like, I didn't want that. And with a state agency, I was like, you get to go and view all these different houses, you get to meet all these different people. No 2 days are the same. So I think that's what appealed to me. And whether I realized it at the time or not, I just loved the buzz of like putting deals together and seeing how they were being manufactured or engineered. Like the good old fashioned estate agency. And I know I'm still very young, but having cut my teeth in that market, going from like boom to bust as it did, how before tech became like what it is now, where the agent would be saying to their seller, "Look, I know it's 10 grand adrift of where you want to be, but let's see if we can get that off on the next one."
Yeah.
And that sounds very, very simple, but I think in the last decade, or before like the Kwarteng Trust mini budget hangover, where it's then the market has been more interesting. Before that, it was 10 years of a rising market. So it's kind of price it right, put it on Rightmove, market it right. The houses would sell. Obviously, there was world-class agents who'd maximize every single last penny from the sale. But I found it interesting how they were not just looking after their sale. It's like, well, let's look at your onward purchase, and then further down the chain as well. So it's like reneging a survey or something and going, okay, there's 4 people in the chain. We've got a 10 grand issue here. Can everyone swallow 2.5 grand?
Yeah.
That and I love that.
Yeah, do you know what? It's what I'm picking up on and what you're saying, and I've observed this about you anyway, having watched and spoken to you a few times now. That you really are a student of the market, aren't you? So even as young as 16, you obviously had such a passion and a drive to want to do it, from a very very young age, and then you became that sponge, and you set yourself up in that office, and you watched and you learned both markets to really sort of understand it. But even now, you're extremely learning based, aren't you? You like to sort of get in there and learn from people and listen to what people have to say. That's kind of almost where the podcast came from, wasn't it? Learning from people within the industry that you respected.
Yeah, and I haven't always been that way. And I think that's why I was done with school, and particularly when I was doing my A levels and I was sat in a classroom going, I just want to finish. Because I think it was like, I think I didn't have afternoon lessons at my A levels. I finished at like 2 o'clock. So I was like, Mum, Dad, before I could drive, can someone pick me up from school and take me to the office so I can go work for a few hours, even if it's unpaid, to learn? Yeah, I was not learning at school. So I don't know if this is just me in the school I was at, but when I was a kid and you had English, for example, I think there was 1 hour a week where it was reading. And what our teacher used to do was they go around the class, and let's say you're reading Roald Dahl books, for example, and go around the class and say, who wants to read first? And I'd put my hand up, I want to read first. And they'd say at parents' evening or on the school report, Simon's so enthusiastic, he's always the first putting his hand up to read. The reason I read first in class was so that I could stare out the window the rest of the time and not get picked on. Because if I hadn't read yet, the teacher would go, oh, he's looking out the window, I'll pick on him. But I wouldn't be paying attention, so I wouldn't know what page we're up to. So I'd read first, for example. So I was not like that learning base. Absolutely not. But I think if something interested me, for example, when I used to get new computer games when I was younger, my mum would say to me, why don't you just put the disc into the PlayStation and play the game? I'd be reading the manual because I wanted to like understand how it all worked before I did it. But I think over time, it's then leaning towards having more of a bias for action, because we can all, great being learning based, but part that to one side, you've then got to action as well.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because I've got to say, me and you must be a little bit similar on that, because I used to do that. I used to read the books, the actual manuals. So it must be I think sometimes, I think we're all slightly different, aren't we? As whether we lead with more emotional decisions or more logic based. So you're obviously very much logic based as well. You want to understand something before you feel that you can do it to the best of your ability. That's probably maybe a characteristic, maybe.
Do you know, on that point, actually, I am very, you know how they say 95% of decision making is emotion, the last 5% is logic.
Yeah.
I'm the other way around. So for example, I think I knew for a long time when I was an estate agent that I wanted to leave where I was, but I didn't quite know what it was I wanted to go do. So I wasn't actively looking for anything. And then Sam Hunter and Home Search came along and said, "Hey, do you want a job?" Well, 95% of my logic was kind of done. But literally that conversation was, "Hey, mate, do you want a job?" And I said yes, walked into my office, emailed my boss saying I quit. Now, 95% logic doesn't do that, but that my mind's kind of there. And then the emotion side was I believed in Sam, I believed in Home Search. So emotion drove through that. And it's the same thing with setting up my business just over a year ago of when we're recording this. I've got my Facebook group set up, I've got my podcast set up, got kind of an audience, let's say, had no intention of launching a business. And then on a Friday afternoon in late January 2023, 5:00, remember it vividly, I walked downstairs and I said to my other half, "I'm going to quit on payday next week." And she went, "Where's that come from?" I went, "Don't know." But I was 95% of the way there. Everything was ready, but it was just that I don't know what it was, but I just went, "I'm ready."
And so I want to understand this. So you've gone from estate agent to obviously working with one of the leading pieces of software to support estate agents. What I think you did brilliantly well was you didn't just sell the platform, but you showed people how to utilize it in such a way, and also how to verbalize it and help people to articulate it to an audience as well. So that's when sort of the coaching side of you came out. Is that because you'd done coaching before? Did you do that in branch, or how did you suddenly sort of move into this sort of coaching side of things?
I think once I was running a branch, so I ran a branch for half a dozen years. It was profitable every year, but I wanted to increase profit. I wanted to get more Google reviews, sell more houses, get higher fees, just make everything better. And I wasn't quite getting that in the four walls I was in. Like I'd be like, "Can I take one of the other managers who's a lot more experienced than me for a beer or for a coffee and learn from them?" And I was like, "I don't think I can learn anything more here. I need to go outside of these four walls." And that's when I then invested in myself, into a coach, webinars, going to different conferences and training events. And then what I was doing was I'd get back to the branch and I'd sit the next down and go, "Right, this is what I learned." And then actually one of my colleagues said to me, "You're quite okay at this. You should like do coaching for a living one day." And I think I'd like walk the dogs, and like when you're not listening to any music or podcast and you're out on a walk and your mind kind of goes places. I remember daydreaming, going, "Yeah, I'd love to do that. I'd love to be on a stage one day and like presenting to estate agents on this is how to do X, Y, Z." Did I think that would ever happen? Absolutely not. And I don't know why that might be. But and then when I joined Home Search, I remember Sam Hunter saying to me, like on day one, I've probably butchered this, but he said, "You don't work for us, we work for you." And at the time, I kind of like, "Oh, is that like a corporate throwaway line? Does he mean it?" He truly meant that, because he's like the best boss I've ever had in my life. And he said, where do you see yourself going? And it wasn't, again, a cliche, "Where are you in 5 years' time?" It was, I was like, I want to be on a stage and presenting to estate agents. So, for example, I've been on panels with Graham Locke, who you obviously know well, with the FIA. I've been on a panel at Megacamp, for example. And like there are pinch me moments where I'm like, God, 5 years ago, that's something, not even 5 years ago, 2 years ago. But But I think I love talking about like increasing your surface area of luck, and I've definitely stolen that probably from like James Clear, but I've put myself in that position by being learning based, by being action based. So like the reason the home search role came about was I'm going to seek forgiveness rather than gain permission here. So home search don't shoot me. But essentially, when you work at home search, you can see how agents are using the system. And Sam reached out to me and said, "You're using the system the most out of anyone before it's even launched. Can I speak to you? Find out what, like, how you're using it, how you're thinking." So obviously, from me doing hard work on that and looking at a system pre-launch, has then put me into his sphere of thinking. Then he's gone and offered me a job.
Yeah. Brilliant. So talk to me about how long were you at home search?
3 years.
3 years. Okay. And you said that it was never really sort of a conscious decision that you was going to go and do something for yourself. It's just kind of how it evolved over that 3 year period. So when was the turning point or the light bulb moment where you went, you know what? As you said, you came downstairs, you said to your other half, this is what I'm going to go and do. But when did that even sort of come into your brain as something that you would want to go and do?
I think as more and more when agents would ask me to go to their offices and do presentations on stuff, it's like there's a demand here for that. The podcast was doing quite well, which again was Sam Hunter's idea. Sam said, "You've got a lot of value to add. Why don't you do a podcast? Because it will help you grow, and then maybe as a byproduct, home search as well." That's kind of how that started. And then I said to him, "Can I have a Facebook group? Do you mind if I do that? It won't be a conflict of interest." Because I was like, I'm adding value in these different Facebook groups. Why don't I just create my own? That then got traction. And then agents started approaching me more and more directly saying, "Can you come and consult for us? We'll pay you for your time." And I was like, "Well, kind of a conflict of interest there. You could sign up to home search and do that." And they're like, "Well, we don't really want to sign up to a SaaS platform, or we don't want contracts. We literally just want to spend half a day with you." And then more and more agents said that. And then I was kind of like, do you know what? Enough agents have said this that most will not actually go through with it. You like to be fair, but I was like, if I think an X percentage of these would actually do it, I think I could actually pay my mortgage, was my thought process.
Yeah.
And yeah, I had lunch with someone literally a few days before Christmas in 2022, and they said, "Simon, you need to go do this." And probably, you know, I owe a lot to them because they chased me probably every day in the January of 23.
Okay.
Because I think I kept making the excuse, "Oh yeah, well, I'm 6 months left on a 2-year mortgage, and this is before rates really started to going up and up and up." And I said to him, "Trouble is, if I start up a business, I don't have any pay slips, don't have any accounts. How am I going to remortgage my house?" He said, "Well, just speak to your mortgage broker." I ring up a mortgage broker. He goes, "You use Santander, you can just do a switch rate." And I was like, "Bugger, that's my last excuse out the window." But then
how was the emotions at that stage? Because obviously you're going through a process like everyone does when you're about to start a business or you're going to make a major decision in your life. It might not be anything to do with estate agency, right? But we all go through a process of getting to that final moment. Try and explain to people, I suppose, that emotion of when you're trying to make that decision. So it's like, obviously you got to a point where you just thought, do you know what, I've now got more of a chance of this working than like before because I'm getting data again, I'm getting logic to help me get to that point. But how did you feel? Because like you don't truly know, like people might give you an indication that I'd use you and I'd support you, etc., etc. But you don't know until that day where you go, right, here I am, it started. You don't actually know whether you're going to get the support that you thought you would. So emotionally, how did you go through that? I mean, what did it feel like on that first day where you went? Because I think I might have spoke to you pretty much around that time, I believe. So explain that, because I think anyone listening to that, I think it's the emotional side that I always like to tap into to kind of help with that fear factor, because a lot of people will go through that.
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. It's made me like think a lot in what you said there. So I think as human beings, we are so like ingrained to think of 10 reasons why something might not work rather than just that one reason why it could work. And that's where I was going until every point had been eliminated by this person before I said do it.
Yeah.
So that was an emotion going through. I think also an emotion for me is 3 years at Home Search was, it's all well and good me sat here in a PAYE Monday to Friday job telling agents, and a lot of them being self-employed, this is how you can go out and use this platform to generate business. But I'm sitting there from the comfort of a paid salary to do that. I then go, well, hang on a minute. If I go out there and have to practice what I preach, what if it all comes tumbling down? Because if I can't even prove my business, how dare I go say to people, this is how you can go generate business for your estate agency? So I think a massive fear of failure was a big thing. But then I think it got to a point, again, the person who I mean, there's several people I owe a lot to, but I think they just said to me, well, what's the worst that can happen? If it doesn't work, you'll just go get a job again as in prop tech, supplier sector, or maybe you go back to estate agency, be an agent again, because you've got 3 years at that point outside of agency. You've learned all these things in the prop tech part. You've spoken to hundreds, if not thousands, of agents up and down the country. So I think that's the thing that's going through my head. And what's really interesting as well is for one particular person who has signed up with me recently, a year after launching, if you'd said to me, if you had to bet your mortgage on one person who's going to sign up with you right from the outset, it would have been them. And it took a year. And if they are listening to this, they'll know exactly who they are. But it took them a year to actually then go through with it.
Wow. I mean, so I think I kind of know the answer, but other people won't. What you have to be really driven to make it work, right? And sometimes you have to be almost fearful of failing in order for you to jump into action and do what you need to do consistently every single day to make your business work. So did you make sure that you had like absolutely bundles of cash behind you, or was it a case of I've really got to make this work in the next couple of months or I'm doomed? What did you do?
I think there's two different answers to this. And of course, like in self-employed estate agency, whether that's your partnering with a business or whether you go, I think some people get it wrong when they pigeonhole self-employed estate agency. Because for example, if I wanted to launch, I will answer your question, I promise, Claire. But if I wanted to launch an estate agency tomorrow, whether I partnered with one of the various models that are out there, or if I went and got a high street premises as a high street independent agent, I'm still self-employed.
Yes.
Sure.
It either way. So, but the thing is, for me was, two answers. One, no, all my money was tied up in my house. So I was kind of that old saying, asset rich, cash poor.
Yep.
So I was always like, any equity I can put into the house, amazing. That's just, again, maybe the estate agent in me. So it's like it had to work, because there wasn't loads, like 6 months worth of funds to live off. Sure, there was a little bit to pay the bills and stuff, and maybe I had the benefit of family, let's say, that I knew that if everything went terribly wrong and I lost my house, I could turn up at their front door and that's okay. So maybe there's a little bit of comfort there. So I'm not suggesting or recommending agents go full throttle and don't have any money behind them, but I also think it had to work for me to an extent. It's like, and that drove me to try and create revenue from the start, because obviously in an estate agent, let's say best man in the world, you list the house day one, sell it day one, which is obviously going to be a rare occurrence. It's still probably going to be 3 months till you get paid.
Yeah.
So you got 3 months of bills to pay. So for me, I was like, I need to start earning revenue from the start to sort of pay my bills. And the best thing I think I could have done when I launched my business, and it's funny because you'll know exactly where I'm coming from with this, from the estate agency side, was just put a post out, I think on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram, and said, I'm absolutely petrified, but my new business launches tomorrow on the 1st of March, 2023. If anyone's interested in finding out more about it, let me know.
Yeah.
I didn't have a website, I didn't have a logo, wasn't quite sure what the proposition was, but people were ringing me and going, I don't know what you're doing, but I'm here for it. Now, I could have spent that whole month not telling anyone what I was doing, build a website, create a logo, do all that administrative stuff. But I was like, just get revenue coming in, proof of concept as well. That was my key thing to start with. And you think how many times when I've had self-employed agents on my podcast, I'm like, where'd your first listing come from? And they go, it came from my network. Oh, funny that. And how did that come about? Well, I put on Facebook, but I'm now an estate agent, or I've launched my own estate agency. And it's not even like their friend. It's like someone who is a friend of a friend on Facebook who's like, oh, I went to school with you 10 years ago and you got no contact with. You just put it out there to the universe to say that I'm doing this.
Yeah, fantastic. So, obviously you're a year in now, just over a year in, as you said. How's it gone?
A lot better than I expected it to. So I think, again, recording this probably 13 months into business, roughly speaking, I think I depending on how you look at it, because it varies on number of branches or self-employed agent stuff, probably worked with 150 to 200 agents.
Wow.
In the last 13 months. I think I've had 113 5-star Google reviews.
That's amazing.
In that time. And yeah, I've been invited onto podcasts like this. I've done webinars. I had some really good collaborations with like suppliers, the industry as well, gone to lots of different conferences. So yeah, if you'd said to me 13 months ago or 14 months ago when I handed my notice, this is what it will look like in 14 months, I wouldn't have believed you.
Well, what's the goal? Where do you want to get to with this? Do you have a vision for what you're trying to achieve long term?
So my mission statement is that, well, I'm on a mission to become the most useful person to follow for UK estate agents.
Okay.
And that's kind of it's on the footer of my email. It's on my link tree. I share that a lot. What that looks like, I don't know exactly, but it's part of like having the brand of opening the gates, which obviously works very well with my name, like opening the gates to more listings, higher fees, more landlords. Like there's so many different avenues it can go down. So yeah, there's various things I've got in the pipeline. But what's interesting as well, that makes me sound like vague, but there were so many things when I started that I was thinking I want to achieve. But again, it was having a bias for action. So I think there's so many things out there, isn't there? Oh, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. It's like just one step at a time.
Yeah.
And what out of the clients that you obviously don't have to share numbers and things, but in terms of the ideal customer for you, right? So you've got an estate agent. So what makes a great estate agent in terms of are there any examples that you can give in terms of the action that someone's taken where they have actually seen an unbelievable return in terms of the actual outcome that they've got?
Yeah, so one that comes to mind, a gentleman called Simon Cowie, who's a self-employed estate agent, and he was selling average priced homes, wanted to go into the higher end of the market, and he was one of my very first clients. And I think over a 9-month period, he must have sent out about 10,000 direct mail letters. That probably would have invested £5,000. I can't remember the exact stats off the top of my head, but I think he'd listed from that about £14 million worth of property, and it appraised another £9 million. But that was from following a process and trusting in it. And I think too many agents, it's the instant gratification. So, like for example, I've got a couple of YouTube series on Chris Watkins' YouTube channel. I got a message the other week from someone saying, "Hey, just watched a video you did," and he sent me the link. Well, I did that 2 years ago. Now it's like, well, that's delayed gratification right there in terms of you've done something 2 years ago, but seeing a result now. But I think, I don't know, the society we live in today, we want everything now. But again, just trusting that process. Like I've just signed a client today who I've really wanted for ages, and a message just came out of the blue going, right, I'm ready for you to come and spend a day with us. And I've not pushed that at all. It's just been a relationship over a transaction, and trying to create like a pull campaign rather than a push. So I know it's different because I'm like B2B, but I've not spent a single penny on any like advertising or marketing in the last 13 months. It's all been through recommendations, referrals, social media, and yeah, leveraging the relationships I have, and then trying to share that with estate agents as well, because I had Damien Hughes from the High Performance Podcast on my podcast, like little name drop there, and he said on the podcast, what was it he said? He basically said, if someone comes to him and says they want to lose weight, he'd say, well, the quickest thing for you to do is cut off a limb. It's true. You cut off your leg, you're gonna lose some weight. It's like, but that's not what you want. What you actually want is, you know, diet, nutrition, exercise, etc. But that's not instant gratification. That's going to take 6 months to get there.
Yeah.
And I think, estate agents are wanting that listing today, and I didn't realize it at the time. But again, the podcast and the Facebook group has made it so much easier in terms of starting my business, because that audience was there. They perhaps already know, like, and trust me before I've launched.
So just so people understand it, your business, so that coaching and that advice that you're giving, can you explain a process of exactly what you do? So say, for example, I know from speaking to you in the past, and even when I remember when you was at Megacamp, one of the things that you come across so clearly was understanding the language to use, you know, both from a headline perspective and also content, let's say in direct mail as an example, and some of the stats that you can put in to get people thinking about, oh, I hadn't thought of it in that way. So in terms of what you do, is that a large part of what you do in terms of the direct mail element? But what else on top do you kind of do on top of that? Because some people won't know that. Like, for example, like the full-on part of the process that you do.
So it's actually been a really good marketing strategy for me that people don't know exactly what I do. So it creates intrigue.
Okay.
So they see me.
So you're going to still keep it that way?
No, I'll share. But no, they people message me on social media and go, I see your podcast, I see your Facebook group, I love all the stuff you're putting out. What do you do? But so I will answer your question in a second, I promise. But something I love from Alex Hormozy is when he says that you give away your secrets for free, but you sell implementation.
Yes.
Yep.
Arguably, on my link tree, on my podcast, etc., if people went and did what I've put out for free, I think they could change their business. It would move the needle in their business. But I think there's that accountability piece and that sort of partnership, which I was very surprised over last year. But yeah, in terms of, I'd say, so my 13 years estate agency experience, 3 years in the prop tech sector, so combining that 16 years experience, having seen it from both sides. And that's where the last year has then brought out that consultancy side of understanding it from a estate agent's perspective, having done that, but then also worked in the prop tech and the data side, because that's a very name other people. There isn't really anyone who's done both of those things.
Yeah.
And I actually realized this from going and seeing Stephen Bartlett recently. Was, let's say, Cristiano Ronaldo or Lionel Messi at their peak, they're not the best player in the world because they're the best at, let's say, dribbling. If you broke down dribbling, passing, shooting, free kicks, penalties, if you name those 5 things, who do you think of? Messi, Ronaldo. So it's having like half a dozen different buckets. And when it comes to property data, market stats, tech insights, direct mail, social media, I confidently think if you put those 5 things, there's not anyone better placed in this industry to help estate agents with that. That's the way I interpret property data, there's market stats, how effective direct mail is, social media, and then the tech insight side of it. And it's just like, just asking just good questions. Like when an estate agent, for example, would say, oh, market's a bit quiet around here, there's not many listings. And I go, what's your postcode? MK16. Right. 10 properties have come on the market in the last week. How many of them did you get called to? 0. Okay, so it's not a market issue, it's a marketing issue.
Yeah.
Why are you not being called into any of those 10 properties? Well, no one knows who I am. Well, why does no one know who you are? You've got no activity on social media. You're not sending out any direct mail. And again, it's that marketing in combination, the Google 7-11-4 rule. I will never get bored of, and I think, Claire, you might have said it at the start. No, you did say it. And I never get bored of being at events and people go, I see you everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
But Do you know what's interesting though? What you've just described, I know you said it's B2B, so it's
Mm,
different, but it isn't different because
no, it's not.
actually everything that you've just described there is exactly what anybody should be doing if they want to build their own personal brand or their own business, right? You've got to be seen on social media. You need to be sending out information, but it has to be value add, right? Everything that you're putting out there, as you say, yeah, you're giving away your secrets, but people don't actually know what order to do it in or how often to do it in, or there's no process or it's not systemized. That's where you come in to help with the implementation side of things. But actually, what you're doing is showing your worth, you're showing what you're capable of. And you missed one of the things off the list there where you were talking about social media marketing and prop tech. Language is something you do exceptionally well. You're the way you articulate it, the way you break it down and simplify it as well. That's another skill that not many people have. So don't sell yourself short on
Thank
that
you.
as well.
Thank you. So on some, this might go incredibly well to back up a lovely comment, or you might need to edit it out or I look like an idiot. And I might get these figures wrong, but let's use some data and language. So how are you both on your knowledge of the history of American presidents?
Pretty weak.
Right?
I do okay, but not very good.
Okay, so I might get this number wrong. I hope it's not wrong, but you'll get the concept. So I'm going to ask you both, who was the 47th president of the United States of America?
I mean, I'm out.
I'm going to say Barack Obama.
Okay, cool. So I'll ask the same question again in a slightly different way. Who was the first black president of the United States of America?
Is it Barack Obama?
Yeah. So Claire, you've actually got it right both times. So kudos to
Can I
you.
just say it's only because he's the only one I remember?
Right, no, but essentially, like with that, estate agents will send out letters in direct mail or put out social media. We're open 7 days a week. We've got amazing customer service. We've won an award. It's like, cool. Who's the 47th president of the United States of America? No one knows. But you've got to have that like specific thing that's going to stand out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, for example, if it's like, I have the highest percentage of asking price achieved, or I negotiate the most money in my clients' back pockets in this town, or I'm the most likely agent to sell your property, and giving them specifics on that, you're more likely to stand out. But agents send out vanilla letters that say, ring me and I'll tell you why your house isn't selling. Or actually put in the letter, I've had a look at your advert. I noticed that it's marketed at 399,995 rather than 400. There's no video tour, and actually you've got an empty house. It would probably be beneficial to virtually stage it. Again, give away your secrets for free, sell the implementation. But so many estate agents go, I don't want to give away all that advice, because what if they go and implement it with someone else? Good, you've helped them do that. You've then got a raving fan. You haven't lost anything. You didn't have a listing in the first place. And the thing with that, like, I'm a big Alex Hormozy fan, and one of the other things he says is like, the stuff you give away for free has to be that good that people would pay for it.
Yeah.
So again, people go, gee, if that's what they're telling me in this letter for free, my God, how good are they going to be for the stuff I actually pay them for?
Exactly. So you mentioned about obviously what your mission statement is, which I absolutely love, by the way. I think that's absolutely superb. So when you do hit the heights and you've achieved everything that you want to achieve, what's next?
Yeah, good question. I don't know. I think maybe, and this is a long time off, but it's probably an itch that needs scratching to go back into a state agency at some point, because I think like I was falling out of love with it, and I think that's why Home Search came along at the right time. So I didn't quite know where I needed to go. That was a perfect thing for me, because it helped me fall back in love with it. And then particularly in the last few years, the rise of video content, presenter-led tours, social media and stuff. And I'm like, I think I might be okay at that. Like, I know the estate agency side, and I think I'd be a lot better agent now than I was when I was last an agent 4 years ago. I've learned more in the last 4 years than I did in the 13 years prior.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, maybe one day, but that's very far in the future. I think that I'm really enjoying what I'm doing, because I think, like, as much as it was lovely to see a seller achieve a great price, move on to their next home and hand over the keys to the new buyer, whatever, my version of that now is when an estate agent says to me, I've just listed my first £1 million property, or my average fee's gone up, or I just tried that technique and it's got me a new landlord. So I'm getting the buzz from that side of it. And yeah, I again, falling in love with the process, just keep fixing on my mission of being the most useful person to follow for UK agents and seeing where that leads. Because I've had some fantastic relationships and partnerships build up over the last 13 months, not through seeking them out, just sticking to my mission on being useful to people.
And where do you see the industry going, Simon? What's your thoughts around that?
So, very bold statement, and I've said this a few times behind closed doors recently. So you've obviously got there's always this whole thing around agents saying, oh, everyone overvalues and everyone's cheap in my area, as if it's an isolated incident, happens everywhere in the country. And really, it's like, the whole, well, if you want to be the cheapest, you've got to be free. Like if someone does 0.5%, it's not the cheapest. Free is the cheapest with the whole purple British stripe thing. I can genuinely see in the next few years, and I don't think it will work, but there will be a well-funded business, maybe even a purple British stripe, who will literally start paying sellers to list their home. So the cheapest will become, we're actually going to pay you to list the home, because really at the moment, a free model, not knocking it, but essentially it says on the website, we will make money from your buyers. That's why you don't pay us a fee. So we'll make money from conveyancing or mortgage referrals. So actually, is a firm going to go, screw free, let's pay the seller £250? Because actually, if they have 20 people view their house, do we have 20 opportunities at mortgage or conveyancing referrals? So that's something I think could happen. And I think the self-employed will continue to grow. There's nothing wrong with it, but for me personally, I could not go back to being a branch manager, having to be at my desk at 9 o'clock and then working every other weekend and taking a loo day in the week. But it's also, debunking that myth of agents who put online, oh, I get to pick up my kids from school and everything's hunky-dory. No, it's freaking hard work setting up a business, and you've got to put in some really, really long hours. And then there might be times when you pick up your kids or take them to school, but actually you've got to show that 9 o'clock on a Saturday night finishing off stuff as well. So yeah, so I think the free model will actually be someone actually paying the seller to list with them. And then I think that the self-employed model will continue to grow as well. That's my and actually mergers and acquisitions. That's my other one. There's going to continue to be lots of mergers and acquisitions. So you think estate agency costs continue to go up just with inflation, all the extra things we have tech-wise, photo, floor plan, video tools, etc., etc. And because of that, I think a lot of agents' profit margins are not there, so they're getting swallowed up by bigger agencies. So yeah, free model will become paid seller, rising self-employed, and there will continue to be mergers and acquisitions.
Okay. By the way, I know a really good brother and sister duo that you could potentially partner with when you want to obviously launch your business, just so you know. just look me up. Is there anything we haven't asked you, Simon?
I mean, there's loads that potentially haven't asked, but I think there's been some really good questions there where it's got me thinking about things but I hadn't even thought of. And I think I said to you before we hit record, I like the informal, non-scripted things because it really does get you thinking. Because if you already know what questions are coming, perhaps you're not getting really to the deep roots of what that person's thinking.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it comes down to a coach or a mentor, doesn't it? Just in general, wherever you want to improve in your life, whether that's you as an individual or your business, I think that is so underrated. I wish I could turn back the clock 20 years and be open to self-improvement, because I was certainly not cocky when I was a youngster, because it's just not my character, but I certainly had belief in myself and thought I knew everything pretty much early on. So I wish I'd been probably a little bit more like you, because I think you might have intimated you had a coach pretty early on, right? So it's making sure that you've got that consistently within your life to make sure that they're pushing you and thinking in their head. Otherwise, you will stagnate at some point. Everyone gets to their ceiling. You're going to need someone to help you push through that. There's no question.
So on your coach thing there, right? Again, going back to increasing surface area luck, and I'm a firm believer in things like happening for a reason. But my secretary at my office could see something in me, and she used to be a secretary for Matt Giggs at Countrywide, and she said, I think you should go and chat to Matt. And I followed Matt for ages on socials, the logical side of me, making sure I know, like, trust him. And then the last bit of emotion, I said, Matt, I want to have you as a coach. And I spent a lot of money with him out of my own pocket, not realizing the VAT on top, which I couldn't claim back because I was an individual paying for it. And then got coached through Matt. I then actually, through Matt, met Ben Taylor. Really interesting conversation with Ben Taylor, who opened my eyes. Then Matt introduced me to Sam Hunter and said, this guy loves data like you. Go and look at Home Search. Signed up to Home Search. So it's like, if I hadn't have invested in myself this time 5 years ago, I'd perhaps still be sat where I was.
That's so interesting, isn't it? Because what you've just explained there is a series of people, a series of
Yeah.
events, and one decision, actually. Because when you change your mind, you can change your life, and you've just demonstrated that's exactly what you just did. That one decision that you made has, has kind of created a series of events, a series of conversations that's led you to take the step that you've taken now.
But I think it comes from, that's why I wanted to ask the question, because it's so easy for us sometimes to just think that we are okay as we are without seeking more help. Or even, I think you might have said it earlier, Simon, that you can be shown what to do and you can even start doing it. But unless you've got an accountability partner to actually genuinely hold you account to doing these things, the chances are it will fall off. You've got to be an extraordinary person to achieve what you want in life by yourself. I mean, that's the one thing that I've kind of learned over the years, and I think it's underestimated hugely, particularly within our industry.
So I think on what you've said there, and a piece of advice for anyone watching, listening, whatever, is like, go and seek out those people who've walked the path you want, and don't be afraid to ask a question. So, like, for example, just asking someone, can I buy you a coffee? Can I buy you a pint? Can I take you for lunch? Like, and that's for people who could potentially charge hundreds, if not thousands of pounds for that. But actually you're getting it for the cost of a coffee or the cost of a lunch. So, and again, just asking a question, and again, just on the language side of things that you said earlier, Claire, anyone listening, if they haven't read the book Exactly What to Say for Real Estate Agents, they should do. And when I met Damian Hughes in person, I said, Damian, I'm not sure if it's for you, but I have a podcast which is about to hit 100 episodes, and I'd love for you to be episode 100. And he went, yeah, I'll do it. And I went, what? Like, it works.
It's unbelievable.
And if you probably, Claire, if you went back through, it's probably LinkedIn, but I messaged you, I'm pretty confident if you look through your LinkedIn messages, it probably says, hey, Claire, I'm not sure if it's for you, but I've launched a podcast. You want to be a guest?
I know exactly what you said, because I just read Exactly What to Say, and you ended with, would you be open-minded to that? And I was like, he's read the book, he's read the book. Yeah, but that's part of the reason why I said yes, because I thought, okay, I like this guy, he reads the same books that I do. So absolutely. But I mean, I was in the room with Phil Jones that wrote that book when I went to family reunion in February. And what a guy, he's unbelievable. His language skills are just off the charts. They really are. So yeah, that's a really good book recommendation. Anybody at all that's listening to this, there's Exactly What to Say for Real Estate Agents. But if you're not in a estate agency and you're just listening to this as a business owner or somebody who's thinking about starting a business of any kind, there's also Exactly What to Say, that's not for real estate agents. And it helps you actually with your language skills, even in how you just connect better with people.
I use it on my wife all the time. I literally, I use it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I hope my girlfriend doesn't listen to this, because I'm not sure if it's for you, but the football's on Sunday afternoon.
And it does. It's worked really well with the children and everything, trying to manipulate them into doing what you want them to do. I love it. It's a great book. Look, honestly, Simon, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. I'm sure that we will revisit again, see where you are this time next year as well, see how your business has moved on. But we've had Simon come to our market centre and deliver some amazing training to our self-employed agents as well. So anybody listening that hasn't had Simon come and see them and help add value to their teams, you need to pick up the phone and speak to him, because he's unbelievable. So thank you, Simon, for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Pleasure.
Cheers, Simon.